As we gather here today, we would like to acknowledge with thanksgiving the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional owners of this land. We pay our respects to the elders of Indigenous people, past, present and future, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and the hopes of all Indigenous Australia.
The Berwick Grammar School Speech Night has always presented us with an opportunity to celebrate the achievements of boys in the year that has passed. And although this year has certainly been like no year before, the need to celebrate has not changed. And in fact, it's even more important as together and as a community, we faced and conquered the challenges of coronavirus, lockdown and remote learning. So tonight looks a little different to the other speech nights we've had in the past. And you might find some of the awards altered too, to suit the very different kind of year that we have had. But how heartening is it to still find so much to celebrate? Boys who demonstrated academic excellence, service to the school and local community, outstanding artistic and sporting achievements, and leadership that inspired others to ask for help and also offered that help to others. So welcome to this very special evening of celebration and community, and thank you for joining us to acknowledge those boys who are able to shine even under the most challenging of circumstances. And let's take a look at this photo reflection of the year that was, compiled by 𝕊𝕚𝕚𝕙𝕥 of Year 9.
Welcome everyone. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are meeting on Wurundjeri and Bunurong land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge the people that I know are here with us tonight or watching tonight. The President of Council, Mrs. 𝕊𝕚𝕟𝕚𝕙, Council members, Senior Executive and School Executive, the families, the staff and of course the students. Work in education frequently references the importance of learning with and from those people who are different to ourselves. Likewise, we know that the greatest learning will come from situations in which we find ourselves that push us out of our comfort zone. In terms of academic learning, we often talk about the zone of proximal development, as noted by Vygotsky, as an ideal space for learners to be. This zone pushes us as humans outside our comfort zone, but not so far that we lose all hope. One of the extraordinary and unexpected things about the COVID-19 challenge of 2020 is that it has forced upon us a situation whereby absolutely no one could predict with any certainty what the future would bring. No one could claim to have the answers. The situation has pushed many beyond that healthy zone of proximal development. A casualty can therefore be that most important of attributes, hope. In truth, living with situations out of control is particularly stressful. How many of us have done that circles of control exercise? But where we can take control is how we feel about that. I'm reminded of the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The naming of this prayer is particularly apt, the serenity prayer. And while I'm not suggesting we stop fighting for changes we believe are right and true, it's about recognizing what we can change and accepting what we cannot is crucial for our own mental health, if nothing else. It also, most importantly, forces us to realise that we as individuals cannot master such a challenge by ourselves, that it can only be mastered when the entire planet works together, and that is our source of hope. While in independent schools we usually have some degree of flexibility, this was not the case this year, and never before have things been so outside our control as schools, when governments and legislation direct us in new, previously unknown ways and at the operational level. As a previous research scientist, coincidentally working on dopamine and its effects, which many of you may know is linked to Parkinson's, subsequently touted as a side effect of COVID, I am in awe of a particle less than 120 nanometers in size, that's 10 to the minus 9 of a meter, that has brought a global community to its knees. Besides the awful death and illness toll, according to UNESCO, the education of 1.5 billion learners has been impacted. That's over 90% of total enrolled students across 188 countries. We are told that there's a strong likelihood that situations like COVID-19 will return. In 2015, scientists drilled 50 metres into the Tibetan soil and discovered 28 new viral groups that had been frozen for centuries. Exposure to such potential pathogens not only emphasises the importance of scientific literacy, but also the need to understand the links between human activities such as deforestation and habitat destruction, food monocultures, and the resulting negative impact on the planet and our very existence as a species. We would hope that our 2020 experience will teach our species some humility. That remains to be seen. What is clear, though, is that for the majority of peoples, we are realising we can only master the situation by working together, and surely that is a good thing. In terms of recognising our staff, our teachers have had an extraordinary year. They've also had high degrees of success. To mention just a few, Lauren Cook in senior school was admitted to the Victorian Committee for the Australian Council of Educational Leaders. Helen McDonald, another senior staff member, represented Australia at the International Boys' School Coalition research presentations, and her research project was recognised as one of the top 10 across the globe. Karen Fishers, also in the senior school, has been noted as a VCE Premier's Award teacher. In junior school, Louise Sayer continues to represent us on the Churchill Fellowship Trust, and Dr. Stephen Middleton also represents the school in various fora. He's the current president of the Southern Independent Schools Association, a Legal Wise chair, and an invited keynote to many education events. We are saying goodbye to a number of staff who've supported, cared for and challenged colleagues and students. To 𝕊𝕚𝕟𝕚𝕚, to Stephen Ashman and Shelley Evans, to Courtney Rabble, to Sue Ann Lewis and Lynn Brady, thank you for your service and contributions. This year we welcomed a Director of Risk and Compliance, Mrs. 𝕊𝕚𝕟𝕚𝕚, whose fabulous work, all done in a Chanel jacket I might add, is preparing us well for the VRQA review due next year. And I know everyone at home or who is listening will acknowledge and thank an extraordinary group of educators. The majority of VCE subjects continue to be taught by teachers who are or have access to current or past VCAA examiners. It's an outstanding statistic that ensures our students get the best academic support they can. Likewise, in the junior school, the number of PYP workshop leaders continue to lead and direct all staff in the junior school with outstanding results. And of course, the whole school being recognised as a finalist for curriculum innovation at the National Educator Awards. Our international mindedness agenda continues to shape what we do, and we were honoured to be asked to assist the Asia Education Foundation, who are associated with the University of Melbourne, in reviewing some of the Australian curriculum as set by ACARA. There's no doubt that the capacity of our young people to look beyond BEREC is outstanding. The increased action resulting from concerns, global concerns, for things such as racism, Black Lives Matter, climate change, have resulted in the formation of many student-driven new clubs. The Global Social Leaders Challenge, taken up by a number of our students, has led to international success, with Every Stitch Counts Save the Reef, a cross-age, cross-campus project that involved people inside and outside our community, being selected as not only a global finalist in the competition, but also selected as a finalist for the Social Media Champions Award. The final result for that will be announced in May next year, and we're very much looking forward to that. What is outstanding about this project, and I think typifies much of what goes on in our school, is that it is a project of the heart. And while it requires technological, academic, and dare I say in this case knitting and crochet skills, it is something that has been totally driven by the students, as have so many of the clubs and opportunities this year during COVID. The Dance Club, Calligraphy Club, and Academic Mentoring Club, just to name a few. The Reconciliation Action Plan, launched last year, is impacting our physical spaces, curriculum, and the student voice. Many will know the painting of Murrindindi, who's the Narangita of the Wurundjeri, by Shay Jones, class of 2019, was selected as the winner for the VCE Season of Excellence VCAA Board Appreciation Awards for Top Arts. I'd like to particularly acknowledge the work of the art staff Heather Landman and Natalie Petruccelli for their involvement in this. An Indigenous garden is underway, delayed by COVID unfortunately, and Murrindindi continues to be part of the day-to-day undertakings of the school. We continue to review all our co-curricular camps, tours and exchanges in the light of our school values and the impact of COVID, to ensure that every experience will have attached a clear learning and purpose that assists us to make our students the best people they can be. Enrolments are stable, and 2020 witnessed a growth in both the senior schools, which is the first time in a number of years. We are a unique community that knows itself, knows what it stands for, and is consistently thirsty to improve. What does next year hold? As a school, we need to continue to engage, excite and motivate our young people with the curiosity to know and learn through exercising courage to do the right thing, character to be one's best self, and respect to live wisely and compassionately with others and the planet. I'm delighted to announce that there will be a revised Year 9 and 10 program that for the first time will give the girls and boys access to unique programs at different campuses. We continue to undertake regular what we call safety surveys, which capture not only concerns re things such as bullying, but also give the children a chance to reflect on the structures and programs at the school, as well as the general child-safe considerations, which are a major focus of all schools, that are linked to the 7 child-safe standards resulting from Ministerial Order 807, which is a government directive. As I move to the end of this address, I'd like to take this opportunity to make special mention of some people. I'd like to acknowledge those in the school executive: Lauren Cook, Deb Francis, Martin Visser, Paul Atkins, Linda Shardlow, Nolene Mazza, Greg Neal and Karen Fitzharris. To the senior executive, Ms Louise Sayer, Ms Meg Fortington, Dr Stephen Middleton, Mr Nigel Halsey and our interim Director of Business Operations, Mrs Rosemary Scarlett, and the new Director of Business Operations, Mark Janke. Mark is ACA and has an MBA, and I know will guide us through the next phase financially. We also acknowledge the work of Pippa Birch, who left us earlier in the year. I thank you all for your support, creativity, problem-solving capacity, flexibility, collaboration, indeed all those transversal skills we're endeavouring to impart to our students. To the council members, I acknowledge not only the time and energy that you give to this role, but the incredible importance of wise and informed governance that you also provide. I particularly would like to acknowledge the outstanding contribution of the President of Council, Mrs Fiona Templar, to the functioning of the school this year. It has been a tough year for so many, but Fiona was always there with a smile, advice, and an openness for which the community, I think, should be incredibly thankful, especially in such a year as this. To the students, this year has been like no other recently. You have proved yourselves to be resilient, inventive, clever, and kind. The student leaders at all levels of the school have had to rise to the challenge of leading from a distance, something that has caused much of the literature on leadership to be revised, and you have done it spectacularly well. To the Year 12s, I take this opportunity to encourage you to connect to the Old Boys and Girls Network. This group is a growing, exciting network that I know will prove incredibly supportive for you in both your careers and social lives. To the parents, we've all been on a journey this year like no other, and while there have been some bumps along the way, I believe everyone has reached out to every other to demonstrate curiosity and respect, and this year in particular, courage and character. Thank you, everybody.
Good evening, distinguished guests, fellow council members, parents, friends, and young men and women of our school community. Welcome to this virtual address. To say that this year has been unprecedented would be an understatement. When our first communication regarding COVID went out to our community in January this year, we could not have envisaged the journey that we have been on, the challenges we would have to face, or the adjustments that would need to be made, sometimes at a moment's notice. I can only say how very proud I am of us, of our students, of our teachers, of our parents, of our leadership teams, of us as a community, the St Margaret's Berwick Grammar community. It has been an absolute honour to work alongside our principal, Ms Annette Roan, whose leadership and foresight has been extraordinary. She has been ably supported by our Vice Principal, Dr Stephen Middleton, and the leadership team. All our staff have gone above and beyond under these extenuating circumstances, and on behalf of Council, I would like to thank them. Overseeing the management and the financial side of a school like ours has certainly had its challenges during this time. Balancing the needs of all our stakeholders whilst ensuring a strong, viable financial future for the school was at the heart of every decision School Council made. Making the decision early on to stand by our staff and not stand down any teachers ensured that we could continue once face-to-face teaching resumed. Operating a support school to assist those emergency workers in our community and children who needed additional assistance meant staffing reallocations. Council went to the community earlier than usual, notifying them that there would not be a fee increase for the 2021 year. Refunds were also provided to families once we were certain of the full impact COVID would have on us this year. We would like to extend our utmost gratitude and thanks to Mrs. Rosemary Scarlett, our Interim Business Manager, and her wonderful team, and to the Chair of Council's Finance and Risk Management Committee, Mr. 𝕊𝕡𝕙, and fellow Council members and farm members, Mr. 𝕊𝕚𝕚𝕙 and Mr. Sam Pritchard, for their level heads and business acumen. During the year, Mr. Chris Kelly, who was the Chair of Building and Grounds, resigned from Council, and we would like to thank him for the many years he served the school. In his place, Mr. Patrick Brennan stepped up as the new Chair. Greatly assisted by his team, Miss Amy Ridgway, Mr. Evan Golke and Mr. Andrew Pert, they have overseen and assisted several projects around our school, the most significant being the completion of the car park at our officer campus. Council, in conjunction with school senior exec, are now in the process of developing our master plan for building and grounds, which will take us through to 2035. This will hopefully see the construction of a multi-use building at the Berwick campus and updated teaching spaces. I would like to thank this team for rising to the challenges put to them and making the most use of the opportunities that presented during the year. This year, Miss Julia Utan and Mr. 𝕊𝕚𝕚𝕙 were appointed to School Council, and whilst we're yet to attend a full council meeting in person, opting instead for regular Zoom meetings, I would like to thank all council members for their contribution to the school. In particular, Council Deputy Presidents Mr. 𝕊𝕚𝕚𝕙 and Mr. Patrick Brennan for their support, guidance and wisdom, and for the time and effort you have given to your roles as Chair of Finance and Risk Management and Building and Grounds respectively. A strong united school council with a clear vision and a willingness to contribute positively is a feature of a successful school, and I am so privileged to lead and work alongside such a talented and diverse group of parents. This year has certainly been an unusual year, and the ability of our community to adjust to the challenges and changes has been commendable. To our Year 7s and our preps, your adjustment to a new learning environment was certainly impacted by COVID. The resilience you have shown will stand you in good stead for future learning, as will the courage and character demonstrated by all other cohorts. As we bid farewell to the Year 12s, I hope that over the course of your journey at St Margaret's Berwick Grammar, that we have inspired a sense of extraordinary and encouraged you to accomplish extraordinary things. You've walked alongside your peers, your parents and staff, all who believe in you. Now is a time for you to have faith and belief in yourselves. As you leave our school gates to embark on the next phase of life's journey, be empowered and embrace all the challenges and opportunities that will undoubtedly come your way. Most of all, be proud of what you have achieved, who you are become, and what you are yet to accomplish. Hold dear our core values of courage, curiosity, character, and respect. Above all, remember you are fine young men and women who have graduated from St Margaret's Berwick Grammar. Finally, I would like to acknowledge and thank the parents for your continued support of our leaders, our teachers, and of our wonderful school. For the hours upon hours you put in to supervise the remote learning, particularly in the junior school. I'm aware that at times some of you have been tested more than you thought was possible. Some of you still have challenges ahead of you. Know that we are here for you. One of the strengths of our wonderful school, St Margaret's Berwick Grammar, is its community, and it is the strength of our community, I believe, that has enabled us to rise to the challenges presented this year. I wish you all the very best for the remainder of this year. May you take the time to appreciate the valuable lessons that can be learnt from a year such as this, and may you all enjoy time with family and friends. On behalf of School Council, thank you.
Virtute evening to all. 379. 379 days since the last time the whole school community assembled in these seats in front of us. In that seemingly short amount of time, I think it's fair to say that a few things have changed. No longer do you have to suffer through our speech in front of us, but rather can enjoy that luxury from the comfort of your own home. So, ladies and gentlemen, grab your beveragino and relax. Let's talk about the year that's been. We come to school to learn, to be educated in the theorems of Pythagoras, the writings of Shakespeare, and growing up as a great man. But parents, teachers, and past students, we've got some bad news for you. We've all been forced to learn a lesson this year. There's no exam for this one, but there's certainly been a lot of homework to do, or should I say, work at home. The lesson that we've all learnt this year is one of change, one of perseverance, and one of the value of the community that we have.
The biggest lesson has been, despite all challenge, is to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to simply maintain some positivity. For families, you might have enjoyed the extra time you've been able to spend with your children, a pause from the fast-paced, never-ending world of the 21st century, no matter how difficult that may have been sometimes. For students, the extra time in bed in the mornings has been beautiful, and of course, as no doubt all the boys know well, the cheeky during-class snack has to keep you going. The lesson is, in our brave step away from the status quo, there's always been some positives. We think it's important to remember that, particularly as seemingly every time you turn on the news there is something to be concerned about, or another resigned acknowledgement of the pretty awful year that humanity has had. But it's made us realise that even behind our screens, sheltered away in our houses kilometres apart, we are Berwick Grammar men. We have been taught and have experienced the value of novelty, of adapting to change and of overcoming challenges. The red, blue and gold that streams through our veins connects us, and even when we aren't at school together, so that we can always come back to our brothers, the BGS brotherhood if need be.
There are a lot of times along the BGS pathway where you find yourself up against a challenge, having to rely on the brothers around you for support, the entirety of Year 12 for one. But for many of us, Year 9 Alpine Camp was the absolute and daunting physical symbol of this. Starting on Monday, with an entire week's worth of hiking to complete and Australia's second tallest mountain to climb, it seems like an insurmountable task to even the most hardened optimists. But it seemed like we've sat through assessments and dealt with the endless homework. A mountain to overcome? That's easy work. But alas, it was not. Every step was excruciating, and everyone was pretty moody. It seemed, much like this pandemic, that it would never end, that each and every one of its almost 2,000 meters was growing in size with each step and thought of hunger. I honestly don't know what kept us going in between the steps, but I think it was our wit and our humour, a trademark of Berwick Grammar men, even in the toughest of times. Or, perhaps knowing teenage boys, it was the promise of some warm food at camp. For many of us, it was that moment, having finished the week successfully, still alive and with all limbs, that we knew that despite the challenge, despite its gradient and its formidable height, we had ourselves controlled our own story. We had written ourselves to victory. When I think about this, the brothers of BGS, I see our collective story, but I also see hundreds of individuals, each with their own narrative. Berwick Grammar men don't shrug at the sight of challenge and give up. We write our own stories and craft our own adventures. Some days, it feels like the choice is simple. Do I study or do I just watch The Bachelor? But you need to stop and think. When I flip the page of my story, what's going to be written on that next page? Is it success? Is it my goals and desires? If it's not, perhaps it's time to reconsider. Whether it's Mount Bogong, Year 12, or a global pandemic, challenge and adversity will always find us. So it's our job to look to the brothers around us and ask for some help.
Recently, I stumbled upon a word that really resonated with me, a word called Ubuntu. And it wasn't until I did research on it that I truly began to realize its significance, that of which stretches beyond just the word, but instead is a way of living that perfectly describes our resilience during these challenging times. Ubuntu is a South African term that describes the essence of togetherness. The idea that to be a human being by oneself is within itself a contradiction. I have to learn from another human being how to be human. A person is only a person through other people. I cannot be all that I can be unless you are all that you can be. When you thrive, I thrive, and likewise when you suffer, I suffer. And to be quite frank, I could not think of a better term to describe the relentless spirit and heart of our community. To the teachers, you've made this turbulent year incredibly smooth during the most difficult year there's ever been for a Year 12. Your efforts to engage and make the transition to online learning friendly rather than daunting has not gone unnoticed. So from the bottom of my heart and on the behalf of all the Year 12s, thank you. To the parents, I cannot fathom how astonishingly difficult juggling responsibilities of your child as well as your own would have been during these incredible difficult times. I salute your relentless endeavours to provide for your sons, balancing your own work at home and guiding your son's education. It's the small details of constant love and support that are invaluable and impossible to truly recognise. And finally, to the boys, what a wild ride it has been. We've copped the brunt of every single punch this year could have possibly thrown at us, and yet we've continued to soldier on. Within the most impossible of circumstances, you've demonstrated resilience, but most importantly, character and heart, which has made Oliver and I incredibly proud to be your school captains this year.
With exams looming, this may be the last you'll see both of us in school uniform. But as always, we'll still be here, though from afar, to continue watching you boys grow into the incredible men you're all going to be. Stay safe, tell your parents you love them, and from Naval and I, a final goodbye.
And good night.